From the studios in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, it's time for This Week in League De Nutz with the commissioner, your host, Matt Levine. All right, and welcome to This Week in League De Nutz, the Thursday night show, the early start as a prelude to the Giants and Patriots NFL TNF matchup tonight. By the way, I am Commissioner Nutz. Got it right in the intro. Welcome to This Week in League De Nutz. Hard to believe, 5 weeks in the books. Week 6 upon us, beginning tonight in Foxborough. I will have a final score, a reality final score. It's right here. I wrote it down. I don't want to pull it out just yet. We'll see what I mean. Give you a Giants-Patriots final score, but that comes at the end. First, we talk about fantasy, and we talk about all that's gone on in This Week in League De Nutz. So as you hit this week in Week 6, I think what you come to is what Yogi Berra once said, the old fork in the road. And when you come to the fork in the road, you take it. Meaning, you kind of know what you have with your team. You've established the identity. Yet the home stretch is right there on the precipice. So you're at the fork in the road. Kind of know what you have. Are you ready? The home stretch is just upon us. Next week, we will hit the halfway mark. If you don't know what you've got by then, you're in big trouble. Or maybe you're better off. So let's get into it and run down the games here in League De Nutz. Before we do that, though, I want to wish all the peeps out there, even if you're not the peeps, Happy New Year. Shana Tova. All right. The NFL year is underway. League De Nutz is underway. Let's talk about some fantasy football. The rundown in week number 5. We'll start with yours truly. The Nuttstown Destroyers derailed by Polk High School, 145-112. Nuttstown with the loss, second in the Haganah, 3 up and 2 down with the win. Polk High does a Woe Bundy into first place in Farley Roper. Also, 3 up and 2 down, big win for Polk High School. Difference in this one, quarterbacks. Dak in the loss to the Pack, 27 of 44, 463 on the yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Good for 31 points. Oh, Baker. Oh, Baker. Boy, has he let me down. My 8th round draft pick. Talk about 8s. 8 for 22, 36%. I didn't even have to do the math for that one. Calculated it right up here. 0 touchdowns. 2 interceptions. Controversy always follows this dude. Richard Sherman's shaking hands or not shaking hands. -2 points, was sacked 4 times. I know the O-line didn't quite do the job. Maybe they're missing that offensive line when they shift to the Giants. Just maybe. On the season, 4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, QBR of 33.4. What does that get you, Baker Mayfield? Benched! The Nuttstown Destroyers go with another quarterback. More on that as we'll do the previews for Week 6. Meanwhile, great wide receiver battle. I was texting Polk High School during the games. You had Michael Thomas going mano-a-mano at 1 o'clock last week with Adam Thielen. Thielen, 45 points, 130, 2 touchdowns. Long reception of 44 yards. Thomas, a little bit better. His long reception, 42 yards, 11 catches, 182 on the yardage, 2 touchdowns, good for 53 points. So what does that mean? You put Dak together with Thomas, way too much for the Destroyers to overcome. Baker, get to the back of the bus. Again, big-time loss for the Destroyers to those. Polkheisters. That makes sense. I don't know. Woe Bundy. I bow to Polk. Let's move on. I don't want to do that again. By the way, I lost in the Schwag League. That's the other league we're in. Lost to Polk twice. Annually, we play each other in both leagues the same week. And both leagues are like 10 years. Well, we're 11 years old. I think the Schwag League, the Dynasty League, is 10 or 11 years old as well. So Polk gets the clean sweep. Almost said over the king. They just call me nuts. I'm not quite that yet. Anyway. Ozone. Back on track. Blast. Loopy's Legends. 123-160. Wow. How about this? Ozone with the wide receivers. I know he's got good ones. Amari Cooper, 58 points. Michael Gallup, Mike Williams from the Los Angeles Chargers. Finally getting used to saying that. Not really. They combined all three of them for 107 points. Okay? Philip Lindsay, great pickup. Great pickup there by Ozone. Underrated. 29 points last week in the win for Denver over those LA Chargers. So you put that all together. They win by 63 points. Good victory for Ozone. They improved to 4-1, first place in Shoreham Drive East. Good job, Ozone. Meanwhile, Loopy's got talent, but he's got a weird team. He's got Godwin, who's been awesome for the Buccaneers. Hopkins, always great. A little bit quiet last week. But he's got wide receivers from Tennessee with his tight end. So he's got some weirdo Titans on that team. And then you've got some great players on the roster as well that weren't involved last week, like Galladay. So all in all for Loopy, tough one. Tough one. 2-3, swimming with the fishes. Last place in the Luca Brazzi division. Act like a man. Horrible. You know what I meant. Anyway, congratulations. And that wasn't Luca Brazzi who said that, of course. That was the Don, right? It's probably my favorite scene of The Godfather. Anyway, let's go to the third matchup of the week. Dingstown. Now second place in Shoreham Drive East. Why? Because they lost to Skills That Kills. 162-107, Skills That Kills. First place in Luca Brazzi. 4-1 on the season. Interesting thing here for Skills That Kills. Got a lot of talent on this team. We got three quarterbacks. I'm going to talk more about them later. In Brady, Ryan, and Daniel Jones. Brady, I'll talk about him now. 34 points for Brady. Ryan, 42 points. Right? Over 70 points for those two dudes, both on the bench. Skills That Kills, a true New York Giants fan through and through. You don't find a bigger one. Or a bigger I'm as big, and I know some of you are out there as big, Keldar. Maybe not find a bigger Dallas Cowboy hater, and that's by a tiny, tiny fraction of a point. Now we're equal. But the man loves his Giants, hates his Cowboys. Cheers to that. Starts Daniel Jones, 18 points. You've got two Hall of Famers, one shoo-in, one potential, and you start the rookie, and you get the win anyway. 9 of his 11 players in the lineup in double digits. David Johnson, 20 points. He's starting to show up. Travis Kelce, 21 points. Skills That Kills. Well, they had 5 of 11 guys in double figs. Some duds, Mike Evans. You don't say that very often. The bagel last week. It's the one game he'll have during the season where he won't show up. I guarantee you that. 0 points. Julio, I think he was at the schoolyard because he only had 7 points. Brandon Cooks, 5 points. So a disastrous Sunday for Dingalings, who has that power 3 at wide receiver. Only 12 points between all 3 of them. That leads to the loss. Congratulations, Skills That Kills. Looking great. Smash U over Pop, Drop, and Lock. 194, 136. Let's talk about Smash 4-1. First in Luca. Last in Shoreham Drive East for the defending champion. 0-5 Pop, Drop, and Lock It. Hasn't won a game since last year's title. I've said this before. Now it's a complete. It went from a Nuts Cup hangover to a Nuts Cup bender. What is going on? Pop, Drop, and Lock It. You thought it was easy. You come in here, you win a cup. Season is slowly falling apart for the champion, and it's not looking like it'll be a defending champion year. Not over yet, but he's got some major, major ground to make up. Trouble has been for Skills, the duds. No one has really stepped up. Besides Edelman last week, 37 points. Marcus Valdez-Scantling each week, kind of disappointing. 2 points last week. Duke Johnson, 6 points. All in all, you got trouble in trying to beat your opponent when you've got guys, again, who are putting up bad efforts. The 0-5 is earned. And you know I'm big on giving props to the Fox, the champion, right? But hey, he's got work to do, as I said. Meanwhile, Smash U goes on to the victory. Enjoys that. All his players in double digits. Aaron Jones, 53 points. 19 rushes, 104 yards in the win over Dallas with 4 touchdowns. You get 4 touchdowns, you get 53 points. And most times, often than not, you were going to cruise to victory. Good job there, Smash. How about Keldar? How about him? First place in the Haganah. Remember last year? This was, I think, after week 3 or week 4, because I was going to show you last week and I didn't have the picture. Keldar declared, remember, Earth, filth. Soon it will be Keldar season. Keldar fell apart. Point being, Keldar, not talking too much smiggity smack this year. Kind of TCB, taking care of business. Quiet. Is it fun? No. But he's methodically taking care of business week in and week out. And what's good for Keldar, I guess, is good for the rest of us Earthlings. First in that Haganah, 169, 128. Spanks no friggin' luck, who's now second in Furley. NFL. Not a bad Sunday, really. All the players in double digits, but only one guy that had a really good game, and it was his quarterback. It isn't even a great game. So no one really exceeded expectations because Jimmy G had 18 points. Le'Veon Bell. Okay, he had 18 points as well. I'm going to talk more about him later. Averaging 16 points a game. Not enough. Not enough at all. Keldar, meanwhile, week in and week out, he's been getting it done with Chubb Nice, right? Nick Chubb. But last week, didn't quite need Nick Chubb. Not at all. In fact, it was this dude, who I like, by the way, leading the way. And that's Tyler Boyd with 42 points, 10 receptions on 14 targets, 123 yards, touchdown for Cincinnati. Fournette keeps on coming through for Keldar week in and week out, 28 points. As much as Chubb has been there, so has the Jacksonville Jags, all everything running back. So great win for Keldar, who again is very businesslike this year. We'll call him the Michael P. Keaton of League De Nutz. No, that doesn't sound right. Just call him Keldar. And we are all earth filth. Right? Meanwhile, make sure I got all these right here. Oops, I'll make sure I didn't forget any of these. I literally count my notes. Okay, this is the last one. All right, so, yeah, this is number 6. Yonkers. Hammers. AB's painted helmet. By the way, I think Yonkers hit on 4-6 of his predictions last week. He did offer to be a guest on this week's program. But last word has it that he is at Halal Fried Chicken right now. I think that was the name of the joint, right? So he's busy. He couldn't come on the show. We'll get Yonkers back here. He did a great job last week as a guest. I guess that propelled him to victory. Hit the 200 mark. 202, 143 over AB's, who's struggling 1-4 last in Furley Roper. Yonkers in the crazy Haganah, 2-3 on the season, a game back of first place. How'd he get it done? A little McCaffrey, a little Cook, 2 running backs, over 300 yards combined, 82 points. McCaffrey and Cook, fabulous. You get that running game going, you're not going to lose. Plus DJ over there, the wide receiver on the Jaguars. It's been great. 48 points. Now, AB's got an exceptional game from one of my favorite football players in the National Football League, not named Saquon. Watson. Saquon. Deshaun. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Bond. James Bond. Right? Deshaun Watson. Love the kid. 28-33, 426, 5 touchdowns in the win over Atlanta, but not enough. You get that kind of day from your quarterback, and you lose. Tough break for AB. Maybe it's time to change the name. I don't know. Could be that Antonio Brown bad luck. But then again, Yonkers has had AB on the roster, right? I don't know if he's still on there. I didn't look, or I forgot to, I overlooked it. He's had him on there, or had him on there for most of the season leading up to last week at least. So maybe I'm wrong about the jinx. Okay. Before we get into week number 6 and do a little preview, got to get money. Got 1 check in. So we've got 3 of 12 payments in the books. So we're getting there. Getting there. Got a quarter of the way. So please do send in the money. I appreciate it. And for the team that sent out the money, thank you very much. Now the rest of you use bums. Get your dinero in. PayPal it. I've emailed you guys the address a million times. I'll email it again. I'll give you the coordinates for where you can send money and the various ways by tomorrow. I'll send you guys an email. Now, when it comes to this time of year, I talked about it in the opening, right? You're at the fork in the road. I've identified your team, getting ready for the home stretch. And I've always noticed that this time of the year, and I'm as guilty as anyone, you kind of do the Linus. Grab our safety blanket. We sit, we hold it. And we beat the living crap out of that waiver wire. Now, this is kind of the Linus. It's our security blanket, the waiver wire. Now, there's been talk in some media bails around the league that there have been squirrels. When you Google squirrel, I found this guy about 20-something squirrels down. Since Rambo Part 1000 is coming out, which I want to see. I think it's coming out this week. Tomorrow, I think. I like the squirrel that's kind of like Rambo. We all clamor to that waiver wire as a safety blanket. And then we become squirrels, maybe not with an M60, but we become squirrels in clamoring to get all those players. And maybe we can get some magic. I'm, like I said, guilty of it as much as anyone. But Smash U, I believe, brought it to the forefront. Now, I didn't have any chance to. You know, the thing is, the more time you have to prep for the show, the better the show is. I thought last week was one of the best ones ever. So I had some time to prep today, right? But couldn't get the fancy graphics. I don't have the Meltzy. I owe you guys that. I wasn't able to do this, but I was able to write it. Look at that penmanship, if you can see. This is what you call old school graphics. You got Keldar up there with 43. You got Smash up there with 38. You got Poke up there with 34. Enjoy, Molly. What do you got? The most waiver wire transactions there, our top 3. So again, everyone cling to the waiver wire as your security blanket. Linus did it. We all do it. And I wish you good luck. Because as we get into week number 6, some of those guys are going to be depended on potentially to bring their team to victory. I love the waiver wire madness. And I love when someone else is pointing out someone else on the waiver wire. Love it. Anyway, let's get into it. Into week number 6 and do some previews. And what I did for this week, excuse me, guys, excuse me, is I got some water somewhere. I gotta give up those lucky strikes. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Lucky strikes, no filters. Just kidding. Anyway, let's talk about what I'm going to do to give you my prognostications this week as I make the predictions. I'm going to give you the point spread, I'm going to give you my winner, and then I'm going to tell you about the difference maker. A player on each squad that's going to be relied on, I think, to make a difference in a W or an L. So let's go first with the Nutztown Destroyers first. No friggin' luck, NFL. You got your 3 and 2. Nutztown, the seventh highest scoring team. NFL, the rookie, done well so far. 2 and 3. Point spread. Nuts, 5-point favorites. Now, I talked earlier about Baker taking the back of the bus. And I don't know why I'm going back to this, but remember last year? I had him and I called him Kirk the Jerk Cousins. He looked good last week against the Giants. He woke up. I give him credit for that. I simply cannot stand Baker Mayfield anymore. He's killing me. I'm going to roll the dice on Cuzzy. Okay? The 22-point week last week. Baker with that -2. And I'm going to bet my bottom dollar that Cousins comes through big for the Vikes against Philadelphia rather than take Baker's off the Monday night game at home against Seattle. That's my difference maker. Kirk, the jerk, is back in the lineup. Have I learned? No. Maybe the second time around is better than the first. Fingers crossed. That's my difference maker. As for NFL, this guy right here, he replaces me. Looks pretty good with the Rocky shorts in the background and sitting at the desk. Maybe he should just do the show and I can be the voice behind them. He's got the Frohawk. Le'Veon Bell right there. Disappointment in his Jets career so far. I know it's early. He missed a whole season. But yes, caught the ball well. 27 catches, 166 yards. It's given him some respectability. He's averaging about 16 a game. But he's yet to rush for more than 68 yards in a game. And he has not had that signature moment as a New York Jet. On the season, 71 carries, 206 yards, 2.9 average. I guess what I'm trying to say is, when will the real Le'Veon Bell please show up? For NFL, you better hope it's this weekend for the Jets. So that's the key player. Lev Bell needs to come through, as NFL, the rookie, needs to get back to 500. Next, AB's painted helmet versus Keldar. Talked about Keldar and his business-like attitude. 3-2. AB's, we talked about the 1-4. Keldar, a whopping 22-point favorite. Oh, by the way, I didn't give you a winner. I'm sorry. Let's rewind. Nutztown against NFL. I'm a 5-point favorite. Who do you think I'm going to take? Molly, hook you up again. Molly's sleeping in the other room. 5-point favorite. Sorry, no friggin' luck. I'm going to hammer you. Get back in that win column. Okay. 22-point favorite again for Keldar over AB's painted helmet. Big player for Keldar. The difference maker this week. This dude. Now, I wasn't a big fan of his shenanigans. Missing practices, not showing up. Because I always thought he was a great kid. Even in college at Maryland. And that is Stephon Diggs. Started kind of sort of coming to life against the Giants last week. 3 grabs, 44 yards. He's had no more than 7 receptions in any such game this season, averaging 10.8 points per game. 16 grabs, 223 yards on the year. Keldar, as I mentioned, Fournette's been a monster. Chubb's been a monster. His other receivers have come through in the clutch. We talked about them. But the more the season goes on, the more Keldar is going to need to rely on this guy coming through and being able to know that you can put him in your lineup week in and week out. And that hasn't been the case for Keldar this season. Keldar goes with Diggs this week. He's going to need to rely on him. Meanwhile, for AB's painted helmet, you've got a lot of problems. He 1-4. But I think one of the biggest problems is the tight end. This guy has been a complete fantasy disappointment in 2019. Maybe the last 3 years since he's been in the NFL. 5.5 points thereabouts per game. Ranked 29th out of fantasy tight ends. Against Carolina in week 2, who the Bucs are playing this week, held scoreless, shut out, without points. Nothing doing. AB's painted helmet is going to need that tight end to have a blow-up game and show he's too legit to quit. A lot of help needed this week by AB's painted helmet. If the tight end can make up for a disastrous season thus far in week number 6, maybe he's got a chance to not only cover, but excuse me again, but win the ball game. However, Keldar, the 22-point favorite, I think earns at least a 25-point win. I'll go with Keldar to claim victory. Dinkstown at Smash. Smash 4-1. Dinkstown 2-3. 13-point favorite for Dinkstown. Now, I talked a couple moments ago, about needing players off the old waiver wire to do big things. For Smash, he's going to rely on this guy.
First down and 10.
Excuse me, guys. And that is Gardner Minshew. We all know him by now, right? The ever-famous 6th-round pick stepping in for Nick Foles out of nowhere. Unless you're in Pullman, Washington, or you're a dork like me that watches Pac-10 football. Always be Pac-10. Pac-12 football and meaningless games against Washington State with ASU in the middle of the night last fall. Then you knew who he was. And Minshew has been great. 21 points a game. For Smash, he started the season with Roethlisberger. We all know what happened to him. His last quarterback, Andy Dalton, not too shabby last week. 22 points for Cincy in the loss to Arizona. But Smash found it in himself to roll the dice. And I actually wanted Gardner myself Woke up and Wednesday morning was surprised to see I didn't get him. I was the squirrel looking for that nut. No pun intended, nuts, as in commissioner. But he wound up with him, and he's going to roll the dice big time on the rookie this week and maybe the rest of the way. Now, as for the opponent, Dingstown, the guy that will be the difference maker is this guy right here. Let me grab water. Sorry, guys. I've been a little under the weather this week, so thanks for bearing with me. That's why I moved the show to tonight, not last night. But that dude right there, you know who he is. That is Tevin Coleman. 11 points per game in only 2 games this year for the 49ers. He'll go against the Raiders this week. Last week in his game back, since missing the game sandwiched from the opener because of getting hurt, in the win over Cleveland, he was solid. 97 yards. But you're going to need Tevin Coleman to do a lot better and bigger things. 49ers have a great backfield. Matt Breida on NFL, no friggin' luck, just mentioned him a moment ago. Uses him on his roster with good results. Not last week, though, but I already talked about NFL. Meanwhile, Coleman's going to get the lion's share of carries, possibly, this week against the Raiders. I'd expect a big game, and I'd expect some receptions. He has no receptions on the season. I think what you saw last week was a taste of good things to come with 97 yards. So Tevin Coleman, my difference maker for Dingstown, for Smash, it was Gardner Minshew, the rookie quarterback. Line 13 for Dingstown. I think Smash covers and wins. I think this is a nail biter. Maybe even go to the bench. How about this one? Next, we'll talk about skills that kills against Ozone. Top 2 teams in the league. Well, 2 of the top 3 teams in the league. Only 3 teams have 4 wins. Just talked about one of them. These 2, the others. Plus 26 skills, an underdog. Ozone tied for the 4th most points in the league with 792. Skills numero uno. 907 points, leads the league in scoring. For Ozone, you've got several weapons. Talk about them all the time. You've got Mahomes. You've got the great receivers. Cooper, Gallup, Mike Williams on the Chargers. But when it comes down to it this week, I think it's going to come down to a receiver that is my neck of the woods. Don't believe I have him pictured. Forgot my Devontae Parker picture. I'll paint the picture. Here's a guy that has all the skills that should kills, but has really never put it together for a complete stretch in the NFL. Instead, I had him 2 years ago, and I started him in a big game. I think he came up with 43 points. My point is this. He is the complete boomer bust. He will give you one great game a season. And as much as Ozone relies on all these superstars, it sounds crazy to say, the difference maker this week comes down to the Finn. Devontae Parker, averaging 9 points per game. Why do I say this? Because guys like Gallup, Cooper, Mike Williams, they make up the strength of his wide receiving corps. The rest of it, pretty thin. You're going to need Parker to come through with a big game at some point. And like I said, he's capable of doing it once, maybe twice a year. This may be the week that Ozone relies on a Miami Dolphin to get him over the top. As for skills that kills, well, The player they need to rely on is a guy who's been a bust in the annals of fantasy football this year, Devonta Freeman. Only 11 points per game. You expect so much more from the Atlanta Falcons. No more than 88 yards rushing in a game on the season. Receptions have helped balance things out. He has 22 of those for 173. But only one touchdown. And that was receiving. No rushing touchdowns. As good as Skills That Kills has been, with the most points in the league, I think you're going to need a big effort from him at some point in the season, and I think it starts this weekend for Skills That Kills. And by the way, Devontae Parker will have an excellent chance this weekend. They play Washington. Next up, Yonkers against Polk, 2-3, 3-2. Yonkers a 3-game losing streak snapped last week. They're a 10-point favorite. One of 3 teams over 800 points scored in the league despite the 2-3 record. They've got some great players they talked about. Jeffrey, the 2 backs that I highlighted in snapping that losing streak last week for Yonkers, and Cook and McCaffrey, who are dynamite, over 300 yards rushing. What do I think Yonkers relies on this week? The tight end, Daniel Fells. He's fallen and he hasn't gotten up. 6.8 points a game. Now the rookie, what's the kid's name? Hawkinson? The kid on Detroit. Yonkers talk so much smack about him. He's the next Gronk, da-da-da-da-da. Well, he's out on a bye. Hasn't lived up to the hype. You're going to rely on the Houston Texans tight end who does squat. Or Yonkers is going to have to get crafty. Go onto the waiver wire, maybe pluck a Tyler Eifert, Kyle Rudolph, and hope for the best. But at some point, he's going to need a tight end. And he's going to need a tight end to put up legitimate numbers. So Yonkers, you better hope to the fantasy gods that you get yourself a big day from whichever tight end you start. Right now it looks like Daniel Fells. Good luck. Polk High School. This guy right here, I think, has been a steady Eddie. You can plug him in, and he does some good things. And that guy has a great name. Kerryon Johnson of the Detroit Lions, averaging 13 a game the week before last, before the bye. He was tremendous. Finally erupted. He had no more than 50 yards before his week 4 outing, 26 carries, 125 yards. Was it a tease or was it a taste of great things to come? You've got Mixon on Polk High, who can run the football well. And you got Johnson, who proved when he can carry the load with 26 carries, he'll come through over the century mark. Point being, Polk High School, you're going to need consistency from the Lions RB. I think he's your difference maker this week. Yonkers by 10. I like Polk to cover. I like Yonkers with the victory. How about this? They go to the bench. A tie. I said that once before this year, maybe twice. They go to the bench. It's decided on the tiebreaker. That's how close I think this one will be. And finally, Pop, Drop, and Lock. 0-5 talked about him as we gave you last week in Week 5 scoreboard, and being in that over that fantasy football championship League De Nutz hangover. Now it's just a bender, spiraling out of control, quicker than Ronnie after a fight with Jen. Loopy, on the other hand, kind of the Uncle Nico of the league, a little bit of a joker, flaunting around that Speedo. 2-3. Yes, I watched Jersey Shore. Not tonight, though. Tonight's TNF, and I've got the Giants-Patriots score coming your way. Who is Pop, Lock, and Drop? No, Pop, Drop, and Lock are going to depend on this week. Who's the difference maker? This guy. I always root for him. He was a Cleveland Brown. Now he's a Patriot. And that is Josh Gordon. A couple Patriots on pop, drop, and lock, including Edelman. Highlighted him before, 37 points in the loss last week that for pop, drop, and lock, but win for the Patriots over the Redskins. So you got a couple Patriots that can be difference makers. But I think Gordon, who's been steady, don't get me wrong, 19 grabs, 280 yards, touchdown. That one touchdown came in week 1. Patriots distribute the football as well as any other team. We know. They're champs. But week 1, where he had those 16 points and the one touchdown grab on the season, was his best effort. He's like Lev Bell. He's a fabulous football player that can go boom at any time and erupt for a 50-point night. Maybe a 70-point night. You know Polk High School, by the way, last week, forgot to mention this, in his win over yours truly, left Fuller of the Texans on the bench. He had 70 points. Josh Gordon, capable of that, maybe even more. I think that's the key player for pop, drop, and lock to get out of the funk and win their first game of the season. You need a monster night from Josh Gordon tonight against the New York Giants. Meanwhile, for Loopy, talked about it, weird squad. Got the Tennessee receivers, including the tight end. You got Teddy Bridgewater leading the way. Got some studs with Godwin and Hopkins. And you've got a stud at running back who at least used to be a stud in this guy right here. Hasn't been the same this year in Todd Gurley. Been a weird season. He's averaged 14.5. He has 270 yards on the season. In week 4, he had 25 points. The stats, not great, but he had 2 touchdowns. That was his best week. Has yet to blow it up. 97 yards in week 1, the most on the year for the all-everything running back. You've seen him go quiet at times later in the season like last year as the Rams made their Super Bowl run, but it's extended into the beginning of the season this year where he's not quite that explosive running back that we've seen throughout his NFL career. So I think, Loopy, you're going to need to rely on Todd Gurley for a big, big effort this weekend. So those are your difference makers as we give you the preview, and I've totally forgot to give you the score. Loopy is a 16-point favorite against pop, drop, and lock. And you know what? I think the former champ grabs his first win, overcomes the 16-point underdog situation, overcomes the goose egg of being 0-5, and I think he claws to victory in a close one this week. In fact, I mentioned before, right, some of the other games being close. I think we're going to have one of those weeks. We always have them. Like Devontae Parker has one of those blow-up weeks once a season in the NFL. We always have one week that every game is just about a nail-biter. I think we'll have it this week. Okay, let's wrap things up. Giants in real football tonight. 16.5-point underdogs to New England Patriots. Is it crazy? No. Giants are injured. Yours truly, the Nutztown Destroyers without my guy Saquon. I've got some other Giants there in the mix. Golden Tate's getting a start for me tonight. So I need him to come through. Giants are bruised and battered. They got a rookie quarterback. We know Bill Belichick takes care of rookies. We know the Patriots take care of everyone in Foxborough most often than not in prime time. Giants 16.5-point favorites. Could they cover? Yes. Will they win? That's a tough thing to ask for tonight. That is the upset of all upsets when it comes to NFL football and in week 6. So without further ado, here is my final score tonight from Foxborough. Patriots over the Giants by 10. I think Big Blue keeps it relatively close, but in the end, too much Patriots. Anyway, that's all I've got. Good luck as we head into week 6. I'll catch you next week on This Week in League De Nutz. Take care, guys. And again, Go get him this week. Buena suerte.